So, to begin then, I am chair of the Worship Space Task Force, or the former Worship Space Task Force, because we've now combined sources with the Community Outreach Task Force. We began meeting in May, and we discovered that we were a widely diverse group of people who were representative of the congregation. And then initial realization that we had was that in order to go through the process of reimagining our physical plant, that we would need to have an architectural partner, because no one on the task force itself, or at least the Worship Space Task Force, that changed ultimately when Paul Sionis joined us on the expanded task force, but nobody on that Worship Space Task Force was an architect, a professional architect. So we recognized that we needed a partner. We researched dozens of architects who might be potential partners for us, and narrowed the list to 11. We shared our programming document, which was what we thought were important elements of our, at the time, sanctuary redesign, with those architects. And we thought that among those 11 that we kind of screened, there would be a potential match. And so we sent our programming document to them, and they sent portfolios to us. That list was culled down to 6. We met face-to-face, was culled down a little further to 4 different architectural firms, and we had excellent meetings with and multiple learnings in terms of the task force. From the very beginning, the task force was most impressed with one particular firm, Pfaff Architects of Nyack, New York. And this was on the basis of several kind of elements. One was simply the interpersonal connection we had with them when we met with them. It was something that was to a person on the task force, felt that that connection was the best of all the architects that we met with. But we were further impressed with the fact that they listened to us so well. They followed our directions in terms of what we were requesting of them. They were really enthusiastic, and their theological backgrounds most closely represented among the firms that we interviewed the background of Union. Some of the other firms were more of a high church, kind of a Eastern Orthodox or Roman Catholic kind of perception. And we felt that Bill and Gretchen were more Protestant-based in their theological understanding, would have a good resonance with us. We asked all to submit design proposals, and when we got Bill and Gretchen's proposal, we were even further impressed with the ideas in their design proposal. This feeling of compatibility only grew as our engagement with them deepened, and we ultimately narrowed down the 4 architectural firms to just this one, and we have engaged them to be our architectural partner. So at this point, on a kind of simultaneous track, we decided that it didn't make sense to do explore a sanctuary redesign in isolation from our whole campus and our mission priorities that have been determined through our revisioning process. And so we combined forces with the Community Outreach Task Force, chaired by Paul Sionis, and we decided to look holistically at the architectural changes that we would need in order to have the campus better accomplish our congregation's mission commitments to become a vibrant community hub in Montclair and beyond. So we developed a process of which this second hour is a part to expand the engagement between Bill and Gretchen and the congregation. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Bill and Gretchen to say a word about who they are, why they're excited about being part here. And I think we're getting some significant echo here.
I'll turn you down.
Okay. And then, so I'll just turn it over to them and they can tell you a little bit about who they are. You'll have an opportunity to see some of their design ideas for the sanctuary, and then we'll expand that out to the rest of the campus. So, sorry.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Pfaff, Gretchen Reinheimer. And I think before we get started and say anything about us, I actually like to say something about you. We're here for the worship service, and we were really moved by it. I mean, the love, the empathy, the humanity, the spirituality, the wokeness of the congregation really came through. The music was at an incredible level. So, thank you for that. It was wonderful. I'll just say a couple words about myself. Let Gretchen say a couple words about herself, and then we'll go through the presentation here. So again, Bill Pfaff, started a firm, Pfaff Architects. I guess it's been about 20 years, and practiced out of Nyack, New York. And over the years have done a variety of projects, have worked with some faith communities in shaping various aspects of their faith, of their spaces and places of worship. And a variety of other projects too, in terms of institutional, retail, residential projects. And I think I've always looked at it. I don't know that it's always necessary. I don't know that it's always so important that you've done X amount of this project, X amount of that project. So I think when you step back, the design process is consistent throughout, and that's listening, understanding what the issues are, and then responding to that. So that's what I feel like we've done here, and so we look forward to taking you through what we've developed as an initial proposal. But before we do that, I'd just like to let Gretchen say something.
Okay, thanks, Bill. My name is Gretchen Reinheimer. I grew up in a parsonage. My dad was a Lutheran minister in Maywood for 35 years. And so my parents and my dad's church and community was a lot like this. I cried through most of the ceremony because that's what I do. So I really look forward to, with Bill, listening to you and hearing what you have to say. How can we help you create a new home? As an interior designer, I dream. I'm a dreamer. So I close my eyes and imagine how it can be. And the work is conveying what's here to you and back and forth, right? That constant conversation. So thank you all for having me here too. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
I'm
going to share your presentation.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll take you through what's being presented.
Moving this back and forth as we switch speakers.
You have to eat
Oh.
the mic.
Can we?
Bill, just
Oh.
real close.
Okay.
Real close.
And are we advancing this here? Or
No, Sarah.
You're advancing-
Sarah.
Okay,
Oh, great.
Good. Okay. Okay. So what we're presenting today is our initial design proposal. This was a response to what the worship space task force was looking for. It's interesting, I guess, as in any kind of journey, a faith journey or whatever, it expands, it contracts, it goes here, it goes there. This was a response to looking at the worship space specifically. In further discussions, things expanded out to maybe the whole campus, then focused back in on two of the main buildings. And so it's a journey. So we'll take you through this what our initial design proposal was. And so this starts out the Union Congregational Church reimagined. And I'll read it for you. And this was updated. It was we originally presented this developed this in October of last year and updated it in December. The document identifies some of the challenges of the congregation of the Union Congregational Church as it seeks to reimagine its worship space. The images, notes, sketches on the following pages reflect our thoughts on what should be the significant areas of focus for this process. Churches take, as we're aware, churches take an infinite variety of forms. They reflect the nature of a specific time, place, and group of people who have chosen to collectively gather in that structure to create a worship community and find a purposeful greater meaning together. And so, along with this, I think this imagery reflects the diversity that built environment that people create to worship in can take.
Okay. So when Bill and I first came here, we weren't sure, do we go in where that big tower is? Is that where we're going to go? Is that where we're going to meet everybody? And so a welcoming entry, as we thought about the design, begins at the street. We see an opportunity here to create an outdoor space as an extension of the worship space inside, a gathering space for the congregation after the worship service, as well as a daily community space for the parents dropping off and picking up children from nursery school.
One of the things that struck us when we first were here was the plethora, I guess, of signage that was out there. Some of it very, of the moment, some informative, some of it historical, and most of it a little confusing. If you didn't know, if you weren't familiar with the place. And so, and that's an aspect of design called wayfinding. So it's, and we thought, just as, Gretchen said, welcoming begins at the street. So it's, where do I go? And so, we saw this as an opportunity to just answer that question, hopefully more clearly. We would usually design the outdoor space as an opportunity to rethink and incorporate the various buildings, signage elements to convey identity, historic information, wayfinding, and current program and contact information.
So one of the aspects of that street entrance, right, is your front door. So Bill and I thought about this, and the image next to your front door there is really just an image. It's not saying this is what we're going to do. That's not what it is. It's just another idea to show the difference, to show what ideas are out there. So we would look to develop a front entry to the worship space that's easy to find and inviting. Design considerations may include methods of lighting and illuminating the existing architectural elements to create a more welcoming entry.
Okay, so titled Worship Space. And this is, I think, a very interesting image. It's not an image of your worship space, although it certainly has the level of detail and and architectural elements in it. But there's distinct difference in feeling. And so I'll just say we're drawn to light. So we would look to bring more natural light into the worship space and use a color palette that maximizes the available light, emphasizes the existing stained glass windows, and enhances the traditional architectural elements while always recognizing the sanctity and sacredness of the worship space.
This is
And maybe just a quick story. When we were here last week taking a tour of all the buildings, and we started out here in the assembly space. It was a beautiful sunlit morning. And then we made our way to the worship space and on our way to go to the Vincent building. And so we ended from a very light-filled space to a dark space. And I was the last one leaving, and I said, should I be turning off the lights? And as it turned out, the lights were not on. It was just the light pouring in, and dramatic difference between the light and not having that same light in there was really interesting. So it's something informative, I think, as we go through this process.
Flexible worship space. That means something, and we have not defined exactly what your flexible worship space might look like. But we see the potential, right, for a more flexible worship space. A partially fixed seating system, maybe. That will allow the worship space to take many different configurations as the congregation's needs dictate. It also opens the possibilities to other uses that'll enhance the church's use as a community space. So the drawing shown on the right is a plan of your worship space. And we just sort of took out some cues to show, like the image to the left, some pews, some chairs that are movable, flexible. That's the idea. It's not a finished design, it's an idea. Flexible worship space. That's what it looks like.
Thanks. Access. We think a flexible worship space, the concept of flexible worship space would also mean less physical separation of the chancel, developing a different sense of that space of the chancel as a space that provides equal accessibility and means for participation of all members of the congregation and community. Access might further extend in a practical way to the adjacent storage areas, allowing musical instruments and other elements of worship service to be stored and easily brought into the worship space. So, and again, just as a comment, I think as we observe the worship service today, there is a lot of stepping up to get to different elements of that space. We would have loved to see the beautiful sounding choir looking straight at us and not, maybe tucked off to the side, as some people, in terms of how that seating provides for. And the term access actually really extends to this building. When we really walked through this building at some of the other levels, it's always two steps up, a step down, a step up over here, to the point of every time we came to a doorway, we hesitated and looked, okay, is there a step here or not? Do we have to step down or up or what? So, access, I think means equality in terms of, of design space. So.
So, in addition, we believe, in addition to the natural light that currently illuminates the sanctuary and worship space, that the lighting design will need to perform 4 functions: to enhance the architectural details, to provide a sort of ethereal design element, and to bring a practical luminance to the worship space in the evenings. And 4th, to provide flexibility consistent with the new worship space. Now, when we did this walkthrough the other day, we heard about how precarious it is to change a light bulb. So these are very practical things that we are thinking about. So lighting, we need it. And there is a vast difference between the natural light that comes into this space and that does not make it into the worship space. So light bulbs, daylight, we are thinking about all of that.
Audio, visual, and technology. It's an inherent part of today's worship service. It's an inherent part of what we're doing today. As worship services and I guess everything in our life, all types of meetings become hybrid meetings. And so audio, visual, and technology systems support the evolving ways we worship, record and share the worship message. Part of our work ultimately in terms of the reimagining of the worship space and the spaces, the assembly spaces in general, would be having an AVT consultant to develop a system appropriate to the needs of the congregation.
This is the last one. So Bill did this little trip around town, which I was so grateful he did that. He took these pictures. He really thought about, actually, I just want to say he and I have had a lot of fun putting this together, putting the ideas together, sharing ideas, talking about this. And so this really does reflect who you are. Montclair is a vibrant, Upper Montclair and Montclair, vibrant, culturally diverse, and artistically aware community. A worship space that is flexible in its seating configuration, lighting system, sound acoustic system will allow for new possibilities that enhance the church's identity as an integral community space. So this does reflect so much,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. I think that's it, right? That's the
I
last
think
one.
that's it. This last screen says thank you, and I think we can just do that personally and just want to thank you for welcoming us into your worship community. And one of the things we've mentioned it before to the committee members that sticks with us is that, and Paul said it, he goes, at the end of the day, the process should be fun. So from one architect to another, thank you, Paul, for that. This journey so far has been interesting and it's been fun, and we want to keep that element to it.